So I asked you, I asked you to spend some time with me this morning because I'm looking at our prevailing environment. I'm looking at the environment around the world, and I am asking myself, are we in a position to, are we in a position to, are we in a place where we can carry on with business as usual?
I think there are a number of challenges to business, and I don't think that we as business can continue the way we've continued, because for one simple fact is that things are changing, and as they say in the classics, the one thing you can be guaranteed of is change. And if
Yeah.
you're not going to change, you're going to become a dinosaur. And there's so many examples across the world of businesses that didn't adapt to change that have gone out of business. And I think you are not being prudent if you're not changing. I'm not saying change just for the sake of change. I'm
Yeah.
saying be a good citizen. And being a good citizen means that you look at what does the world want and you change, first of all. And secondly, what do you need to provide the world that's going to be what the world needs in 5, 10 or 15 or 20 years time? And that makes you a good citizen. If you're just going to keep doing what your great-grandfather did, well, I'm sorry, you're going to go to business.
So that is very interesting. I maybe let's just take some steps back. Let's just take some steps back. Where did this all start for you as a business rescue practitioner, and then moving and executing across, the scale of business rescue, business turnaround, and business transformation? Where did the journey start for you?
I think for me, it happened as a result of me managing a business where I got myself into serious trouble because of a partner taking me for a ride, and I didn't have the necessary skill set to pull myself out of that position, and panicked. And as a result, realized that there was a significant lack of knowledge certainly in this country, for young business entrepreneurs to understand what it is that you need to do if your business needs to survive. 99% of businesses in this country are good businesses. Entrepreneurs are good entrepreneurs. They just get themselves into a position where they are ill-advised. They are not backed up by very good institutions, and institutions that are supposedly there to look after them, look after themselves. And as a result, don't necessarily provide for the future of the country. And that's where my journey started. And as I've gone down this road, my advice to businesses has been is that you need to look at yourself, you need to look at your business and say, well, what is it that I'm providing to society? And is the advice that I'm getting from outside actually in the good interest of my business and society, or is it in the personal interest of the person who's advising me? And 99% of the time, it's the person advising me's personal interest. And that's the sad part of society. People do things in their own interest. They don't do things for the good of mankind.
Wow. And when you started, it was more from a personal perspective, which was you needed to take care of your own business and you needed to learn the discipline of surviving in a business.
Very much so. And I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, the thing is that you scout around for people who you assume are your guardian angels and people who have your back. And unfortunately, people don't have your back. So to find people who are so-called coaches and mentors is extremely difficult. And, I think that's the one lack that we have in society. We talk about ethical business practices. There are very few people out there who are prepared to put their neck out and say to an entrepreneur, excuse me, my friend, what you're doing is wrong. What you are looking at is wrong. The way you're practicing your business is wrong. The things you're looking at are wrong. Do this, do that. Look at it this way. Look at it that way. People get given some really, really, really bad advice, and they end up shooting themselves in the foot because of it. And then the organizations that they go to will lead them down the garden path only to try and enrich themselves. And I mean, it's sad. It's very, very sad that these are the type of things that are happening out there. And if people just stop being self-fulfilling, we could actually generate a significantly rich society.
So I would like to ask you this question because you operate across the discipline of transformation within businesses, restructuring and all of that. What is the difference between business rescue, a business turnaround, and a liquidation?
Look, unfortunately, I have a very cynical view of liquidation and business rescue because, in my opinion, I think in South Africa, certainly there's very little definition between the two. They're basically a glorified version of each other, and that being business rescue and liquidation, because by the time they get there, the business is dead. But business intervention for me is very much a different kettle of fish. And I think if business intervention is done properly, and one acquires the correct skill set from the people who are coming in as an interventionist, the intention is to actually bring somebody who has not only the skill set, but who has the necessary connections to bring to the party what needs to be done to take the business from where it is in difficulty or where it is in terms of stagnation to the next level. Business rescue in this country is seen very much of, oh, well, okay, this business is at its end. Let's just see how we can wind it up. And unfortunately, the way I understand business rescue, it should be not seen in that way. Business rescue should be somebody coming in who has a skill set to actually turn it around. And I think when they say business rescue, it should actually be changed in wording. It should actually be called business turnaround, not business rescue. Business rescue, as far as I'm concerned, should actually be terminated.
So really, I also have that cynical view, but I am not as skilled possibly as some of you out there. I have worked in this environment mainly as a business development individual, as someone who looks at a business and says, how can we take this business to the next level, right? But in the last few years, for those of us who are in South Africa, I shudder to see whether there's been a successful business rescue execution in the South African business landscape. Okay, and every single one that I have known of, the business has ended up in the trash can. Some of the some of those business really household names. I was really taken aback at the beginning of the year. We know that a business like, what do you call them again? The furniture business. What is it? Bacchus Brothers. They have been around, 40 years. They are a household name, right? And just for them to go into business rescue, I think it was about 6 months, and then later on, the next thing was liquidation, bam, 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 sale of assets, and doors closed. And I'm thinking, a real rescue should be able to find new ways in which that business could reinvent itself, isn't it?
You know what your problem is that business rescue has got this connotation that the business is almost dead. So you have very little faith from creditors. You have very little faith from employees. You have very little faith from shareholders. And the attitude is, well, as soon as you announce that you're going into business rescue, all three of those players have the attitude, well, let's see what we can get out of this, as opposed to let's see what we can contribute to taking this business to its next level.
Mm.
And that's where the problem is that business rescue practitioners, as a general rule, do not have the skill set to convince those three players that, hold on a second, I have the skill set to take this business with your backing to the next level. And without that ability to convince those people, you are not going to change the mindset. And I mean, if I was a creditor or an employee or a shareholder, why should I trust you as a business rescue practitioner to take it to the next level if I don't see you have the skill set to take it to that next level? And that's the fundamental problem at the end of the day. And that's where we need to focus on. That's why business intervention has the ability to work, because I'm coming in and I'm saying, hold on a second, I am taking the risk on my shoulders as an interventionist, and I'm putting my mouth and my money on the line with my backers, and I'm going to turn this business. So now I'm not asking you as a creditor or as an employee. I'm actually coming in as an interventionist, and I'm putting in the necessary skill set, which I think is where we need to be focusing on for the future. And that way I'm almost dragging you along as a creditor and a shareholder and an employee. And hopefully, as in each turnaround goes along, eventually each interventionist develops a reputation for being the right person for the game. And I mean, there are a number of very successful interventionists in the country who have taken businesses that have been floundering, gone in, fixed them, turned them around, and made fortunes by selling those businesses at a later stage, and have made wonderful reputations for themselves. And that's where we need to focus.
But now, how do just listening to that, the question is, at what point does the business now know that we need either an interventionist to come in, we need a rescuer to come in, or a liquidator to come in? At what point in the life cycle of the business would the business know that they need that, and they need to now go out and look for the right skills, for the right interventionist to come in and help them take them to the next level? At what point of their life cycle?
I think this is one of the biggest challenges that I've faced in my mind, and I don't have the answers for it at this stage in my mind. But I think that, unfortunately, one of the things that we've missed out on in this country is the role of the universities and the role of business chambers in this country, where in the old days, universities and business chambers had very successful, let's call it clubs or units, where people were part of groups that they could go to, and they would listen to discussions. They would have people that they could rub shoulders with, who they could have just general discussions about how they were doing, what was happening in the economy, get friendly advice. And that's where we've fallen off the bandwagon in this country, where people can get simple advice without necessarily exposing themselves to having to be questioned about whether their business is succeeding or not. And we need to find a way to put that back in our economy, where people who are successful are making themselves available to the general small entrepreneurs out there, saying, listen, let's have a meeting once a month, once every 2 months, where you can just come and talk. And you're not exposing yourself, you're not putting yourself at risk, where people are questioning whether you're succeeding. And that way, you will feel comfortable to have a discussion. And that way, you will then be able to say, well, I think I might be in trouble. Let me talk to somebody. Because to go along and say, well, I think I need to go into business rescue, I think I need to go into liquidation, that's a monster step to go into.
Yeah. So which means, and I'm thinking, I'm in this particular line of thought, I'm thinking, well, there's the macro enterprise, the big companies. Are you there?
You're back again?
Yes. I'm saying that there is the macro enterprise, right? There is the big companies that that can literally just look at their books, look at their financial situation, look at their entire structure, and say, well, we are in a situation where we need some kind of intervention, right? But when you look at it from a family business perspective, where the person who started it, the person who started the company or the business started it as a family business, the business has grown to a certain extent, and they literally hold this thing to their heart, and they are not even in any way considering bringing someone else to come and tell them what they should do in the business. How difficult is that place? Being in that place where the person has this thing. It's a business I started. It's my family business, but now I'm in trouble. I need to bring someone else who is not even a member of my family. I need to bring someone to come and help me take this family business take the family enterprise out of this situation. How easy is that?
It is for me one of the saddest indictments of our country. We went from apartheid into this rainbow nation, and one of the things that we have lost significantly is something that certainly I grew up with, where you had this very strong bond of a social structure, and you had people that were senior to you, and there were people senior to them. And if you ever needed advice, you went to the person above you, and then they would refer you to one above them. And it didn't matter from what cultural aspect you came from, whether you were black, white, green, pink, or orange. You always had somebody that you could go to. We've lost that. We are no longer an intimate society at all. And we are now very individualistic, and we're all out to try and stab each other in the exercise. And until we can get that back into our society, unfortunately, we don't trust each other. And we need to be able to have people that we can trust, that we can go and talk to. And when we have that, it's very easy for the very small little businessman to say, well, I can go to Uncle so-and-so, or I can go to Pete, or I can go to so-and-so, and I can talk to him, because I know that whatever advice he gives me, I can be fairly sure that that advice, or the person he refers to me to, I can trust what's coming out of their mouths.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for the small guy, it is extremely difficult, and I've been there. It's extremely difficult to speak to people. People that I honestly trusted were people that, when I went to speak to them when I was in difficulty, actually stabbed me and took advantage of me because they realized I was weak. And it is a very, very difficult situation. And my only advice to people is go and speak to as many people as you possibly can, but don't panic. Whatever you do, just remember, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Be logical. Discuss it. Sit down. And the only people that you really can trust is the people that are around you, your personal family, your wife, your kids. Don't be scared to discuss it with them. So take all your information, put it down on the table, and say, right, guys, this is the situation we're in. Look at it logically and say, okay, logically, what can we do in this exercise? Don't panic, because panic doesn't help anybody.
And what really do businesses do, say, from their nascent state, from their starting point, right? What do businesses do along their life cycle which pushes them to that place where they need an intervention? What are the disciplines that they kind of lack, which pushes them into a state of intervention, or a state that requires intervention?
I think the biggest thing that they do is they start to live large. That's the biggest mistake everybody makes. They start to think things are going well, and they start to live large, and that catches them at some point in time. You need to be constantly realistic of who you are and what you are. If you try and live up to the Joneses, you're going to come short. You need to understand who you are and what you are. And, if you live your life according to that philosophy, you won't come short. As soon as you start living large, you're going to come short. You need to understand what your business is. And a business is simple. It's not rocket science. You do X amount of sales. It costs you X amount to make those sales. You've got X amount of money left to spend. You spend more than that, you're in trouble. That's as simple as it is. There's no rocket science to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, you're going to get into trouble.
that is forgetting which pocket is owned by who. Right?
Exactly.
So the one
Exactly.
pocket is the business, the other pocket is you. And if you start thinking that the business pocket is your pocket, then you are already in trouble, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, family businesses that have been passed down over the centuries are probably some
Generations.
of the most successful. Yeah, exactly, are some of the most successful businesses. Why? Because they understand that what comes in the one side goes out the other side, and you can't send out the other side more than what comes in the one side. It's simple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That is a nice way of putting it. What comes in from one side has to be what goes out of the other side. You can't pull out from the one side what is not supposed to go out on the other side.
Exactly, exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
So when you are called in for, I think we have now kind of laid a foundation for what and why. Um, what is business rescue and intervention, and why would a company, a family enterprise, end up in that place where they need it? Basically, if I had to conclude first of all, what is business rescue? You say you would rather it is called a business intervention rather than a business rescue. And at the level of an
Right.
intervention is so that you come in using all your skills, all your networks, everything that you've got to transform the business and take it to another level.
Yep.
And then the
Very
next,
much.
yeah, and then the next thing is what makes a business to get to that place? And how do they know that they are at that place to 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 go out and request for somebody to come in and intervene and help them get them out of the mess they are in? And in those two scenarios, the key element there is that you always have to be aware where you are in the life cycle of your business.
I think that no matter what business you are, I think that you should at least once every 6 months be sitting down and spending 3-4 hours just looking at your business and just contemplating whether you're on the right track and whether life is leaving you behind or whether you're keeping up with life as a business.
Mm.
And that will tell you whether you need to get somebody in to help you or whether you're still okay. And if you're
Mm.
not doing that for your business, you're not looking after the health of your business. It's like going to a doctor. You
Mm.
need to go for a medical checkup on a regular basis. Your
Mm.
business needs a checkup on a regular basis.
Mm. So a health check is always required for a business, minimum once every 6 months.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, yeah. So um, I need us now to speak about when a business, when an organization calls SOS for business, what are the steps you take before actually finalizing your intervention, the start of your intervention? So once a business calls SOS for business, what are the steps that you take to get to the point where you would agree that you would move in with an intervention?
Okay, so the first and most important thing is that obviously I want to meet with a team that is in the business and I want to get an understanding of who they are and what what their feeling is at any one particular point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing for me is to understand and judge the integrity of the people that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I cannot help anybody who doesn't want to be helped. So I need to get their feeling, and they need to also get the feeling of who I am. So one of the things that's integral, and I think you understand the profile of the business that we are, is we don't bring any strain to the business. We don't take any compensation from the business unless we've turned the business or helped the business. So we're not going to create any additional cost to the business at all. And hopefully that brings about goodwill to the shareholding or the management of the business, and creates a spirit of goodwill within the team.
I think
The
take that
next, the
back
next,
again. I think take that back again. So what you are saying is that when SOS for business comes is called in for an intervention, your mindset or the heart you take to go into this, first of all, is that you want to know who is in the business, what the integrity of the individuals are, and then the next thing is that you put it plain that you are not there to take any money out of the business until you are able to turn it around. Is that what you're saying?
absolutely, absolutely. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in drowning somebody. I have no need to go along and push somebody down who's already battling. And as I say, I've explained to you earlier that I've been there. I know what it's like to be trampled on by people who have no integrity. And the most important thing in my life is my integrity. I have no reason to want to hurt anybody. And I'm not prepared to get involved in any business where somebody is hoping to get me in to use me as a guinea pig to help them hurt somebody else. I'm not interested. I'm only interested in helping people who want to be helped. So that's critical to me. So when I sit down with a team, they need to understand that I'm there to help them. And if they want to be helped, I'm going to help them. If they don't want to be helped, well, I'm happy to walk away from it.
Okay. And this forms part of your critical evaluation of the business, right?
Absolutely. Then what I do is I sit down and I have a set of questions. I have a set of questions which I go through, which I expect absolute integrity from them. And if at any point I find out that I haven't been given absolute honesty to, I will walk away. Simple as that. So I make it abundantly clear to the team that they have to share with me absolute honesty. And I know that all small businesses have skeletons in the closet. And I am not interested in disclosing skeletons to anybody, but I need to know those skeletons because I need to help them manage those skeletons. So it's critical that we as a team work together with those skeletons, and we need to know what those skeletons are. Otherwise, you can't manage them.
Yeah. So that is your situational analysis when you come in, right?
Absolutely.
So you do a situational analysis and evaluation of the business, and you want to know where the bodies are buried.
Absolutely. And you need to know, and the team needs to be honest with themselves, because, if you ask a team, okay, what are your sales? And the team says, yes, but we have an anticipation of X amount of sales. Well, I'm sorry, anticipation is not sales. Sales are actually what you physically invoiced and have been paid for. That is a sale. Something that hasn't been paid for is a potential sale. It's not in the bank. Same as cash that is in your bank account. That is money that you can rely on. A debtor that hasn't been paid is not money in the bank. And that's the kind of honesty that you need to have with your team.
Okay. And then once you do that evaluation, what are the typical questions that you ask? Where are the bodies buried? That's one of them. What kind of debt does the business have? That's one of them. Who is the management? Who form the management? Who makes the final calls in the business and things like that? What are some of the typical questions you ask for this?
Well,
when you do your situational evaluation?
the most important question I ask is that who, let's backtrack 2 seconds. Let's say
Yes.
that the most important question for me that I need to ask is that who do you owe money to, and what is the status of how you owe that money? So if you have people that you owe money to and they're not asking for it immediately, that's one thing. If you've got somebody who's got a court order against you and you're about to have the sheriff knock on your door tomorrow morning, I need to know that, because there's different ways of having to manage those issues. So that's the first question that I normally ask. The second question I ask is, are you able to meet your immediate financial commitments? Are you able to pay your staff in the next week, the next month, the next 2 months, whatever? That's the second question I then have a look at. The third question I have a look at is then, what are you actually selling over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, and what is that going to give you to be able to meet your commitments? Those are the three most important things that I look at to start with. The next step I look at is then, what are your legal commitments? Are you up to date with your legal commitments? Things like, for example, VAT, PAYE, those type of things. Because that tells me whether you are a legitimate business that is trying to do its best, or whether you're just somebody who's trying to duck and dive to keep your head above water.
Okay. Yeah, because I wrote an article I think it's 2 or 3 years ago, on small and medium enterprise, and one of the things that I really think that governments and tax and the taxing structures of countries have to really think critically about is how they tax small businesses, how small businesses are taxed. Because a small business gets to a place where instead of driving sales, they are worried about the taxman. Okay, and they're trying to do is to stay in this legitimate place you're talking about, but they are not able to go out and generate sales. So the balance, especially for a country like ours, where the small enterprise, in fact, I was reading an article the other day where Nigeria, I think what they've done is that for their micro and small businesses, they give them some kind of a tax break over a certain period, and then they evaluate how that business performs before they move them into the tax system. Not to clog the tax system with, um, 1 million small and medium enterprises, but none of them can even afford to pay tax. What is your thought about that?
I have a philosophy that, in any business, you pay your dues.
Yeah.
And to pay your dues, you will reap your benefits. And I think that if you're a good businessman, I hear what people are saying, that a lot of our legislation is very onerous, but it's not difficult to understand our legislation, and it's not difficult to understand some of the requirements of our legislation. I think people get confused with the simplicities of our legislation and our taxation versus I would call it, people who want to try and manipulate our system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you stick to the simplicity of it, it is actually very simple to understand it. If you want to try and manipulate it, well, then it starts to become very, very difficult to understand. And I mean, you take something like VAT. VAT is very, very, very simple. You go and buy something, you get charged VAT on it, you sell it to somebody else, you add VAT on it, and the difference between the two, you pay over to the receiver. It's very, very simple. It's not difficult to understand. And most till systems and that type of thing, most point of sale systems will actually calculate it for you. It's when you start to try and manipulate that to make an advantage for you. And let's be honest, I mean, that is not your money. It belongs to the government. It's not your money. And you shouldn't be relying on that to generate your business. Your business should be healthy enough not to be reliant on that amount of money. Same as employee benefits and employee structures. You should be able to run a business quite cleanly without having to worry about whether you're entitled to dismiss an employee for poor performance or not. If your employee has behaved badly, it is purely and simple to dismiss that person. It's when you try and fire a person because you're not quite sure whether they behave badly or not. That's when you get into trouble. And that's where your problem is that you have an issue with. So that's where the problems accumulate. And I think the people that get themselves into trouble with South African legislation are people that duck and dive the system. It's not the people that actually stick to the simple rules.
Okay, so I hear you that money that is meant for the government is money that is meant for the government, right? That is for the tax system.
Yeah.